Splatoon 2 has seen a ton of free updates since its release last summer. There's been new weapons, new stages, new gear, and just general improvements to the game itself. But the recent Nintendo Direct revealed the first paid DLC for the game, which comes in the form of single-player content known as the Octo Expansion. And there's a lot to discover beyond the fact that we're finally getting playable Octolings. So it's time to fish up the old analysis machine to see what secrets and hidden details we can find. And we'll begin with the cavalcade of characters that the trailer shows off. Naturally, the first one we see is the Octoling herself, referred to as Agent 8, who wakes up in a dilapidated subway station. By all appearances, it seems shut down. Nothing's open, there's nobody around, and there's even yellow tape blocking the way to the subway car itself. And there might be a reason for that. After all, this subway can be found in Inkopolis Square right now, just past the cafe. It's inaccessible, of course, thanks to a gate, but we're pretty positive it'll open up once the DLC is released. But that leads to an issue all its own. In every other mode of Splatoon 2, you play as your Inkling. You're the one in the Turf Wars, you're on the job for Salmon Run, and you're the hero of the single-player campaign. But that's not the case in the Octo Expansion. You're playing as Agent 8, not Agent 4 like in Hero Mode. So how will Splatoon 2 explain this? Maybe it's framed as a story told by Captain Cuttlefish? After all, he is shown to be the one to find and recruit the Octoling. Or something much different and a little darker could be going on. You can change your Inkling anytime you want. The hairstyle, the eye color, even from a boy to a girl or vice versa. What if your Inkling becomes Agent 8? After all, we see an Octoling boy and girl in a green test tube, and according to the developers, Agent 8 wakes up with no memory of the past. So maybe this test tube is how you'll pick your gender for the mode, and maybe later on discover that Inklings were changed into Octolings. I mean, the narration even says that Agent 8 looks like an Octoling, but with a puzzled tone. Now, this could be in reference to you actually playing as one, or a sly question about whether Agent 8 really is an Octoling. This would even explain how you can change species once you unlock the ability to play as an Octoling in multiplayer. We admit, it's really out there and there are a ton of other possibilities for an explanation, but Splatoon has never been afraid to have a darker backstory. And who knows, maybe that's Captain Cuttlefish and Agent 3's mission. They were mentioned by Marie to be off on their own at the beginning of the single-player campaign, and we see both here. Beyond the fact that we now see Agent 3's canon appearance, we should take note that one of the subway train cars is full of Octolings. These are styled after the more traditional design that we've seen in single-player, with one caveat. Their colors have been changed to a blue-green tint, even on their skin, making them more bioluminescent, which is possible for octopi in the real world. We already know that Octo Canyon is below Inkopolis. Could this subway be even further below that? It would explain the deep-sea characters we'll be detailing later. But as for the Octolings, they may be the goal of Captain Cuttlefish and Agent 8's mission, to rescue them. We see 6 on the train, but an image released by Nintendo shows 7 of them lined up in a row, each with their own unique weapon, which would make Agent 8 the 8th, and keep the running theme of the Octo Expansion. And like we said, they're all wearing shades. Maybe they're the same hypno shades that DJ Octavio put on Callie. Now, this could be wrong. After all, they're still wearing the shades on the subway after supposedly being rescued, but wouldn't it be something if Octarians were truly separate from Octolings, and Octolings were just what happened when Inklings were transformed into octopi? Again, it's unlikely, but fun to think about. However, there's little doubt that Agent 8 escaped from some kind of facility. She has tags on both her left arm and right leg, which could indicate some kind of testing was done to her. A close-up even reveals that they do resemble hospital bands. She also has a different style of backpack, but it functions the same as the ink container the Inklings wear, as we see it drained in a later scene. What's strange is that when she first wakes up, there's nothing at the bottom of the backpack, yet we soon see a kind of bottle attached to it. Maybe this indicates she now has access to sub-weapons? Eventually, Agent 8 boards the subway car despite the tape blocking it off. It seems that this train will serve as a kind of hub, with each car having different characters. The first only features Cap'n Cuttlefish, who has a new outfit. Rather than the rags he was wearing in the first Splatoon, he now has a tracksuit, but he made sure to keep the medals. Otherwise, his hat is new, and he's now wearing headphones, although his cane does remain the same. In the next car we see Agent 8 walk onto, we see that both Pearl and Marina are here. While they didn't have any story significance in the main campaign, they seem to have an expanded role in this case. That new part to play comes with new clothes. Pearl is wearing a different crown, a long sleeve shirt, rings instead of fingerless gloves, sneakers rather than boots, no leggings, and a new necklace. It's pretty much a complete turnaround from how we've seen her up until this point, giving more of a hip-hop flavor rather than a pop idol. And this applies to Marina as well. She now has sweats with a do-rag and sneakers. She's also wearing a necklace, but it shows a symbol resembling an hourglass rather than the star-like shape on Pearl's necklace. This actually matches the designs on their giant zippers. Again, it gives more of a hip-hop vibe, which is likely intentional, as many people have noted that Pearl now dresses like the famous 90s rapper Notorious B.I.G., while Marina resembles Tupac Shakur. As we'll soon see, the Octo Expansion brings to mind the underground 90s culture rather than the pop glamour of Splatoon's usual 90s throwback aesthetic. I mean, it's fitting considering we're literally underground. But yes, Pearl and Marina have some importance to the story, though we don't know what their roles could be exactly. All we see is Pearl contacting Cap'n Cuttlefish in what seems to be the first meeting, as none of them recognize each other. There's even a nice touch where the walkie-talkie's antenna changes color to match each girl. But their role might be similar to the original Splatoon's hero mode, where Cuttlefish and the girls will be talking during each level to provide tips and flavor text. But hey, at least these two finally get more to do other than hosting updates and celebrating Splatfests. Those three aren't the only characters we see on the train though. The next car features 10 new characters, and we want to thank our fans on Twitter for helping us figure out what species each of them might be. The first is a giant isopod who resembles the Mafia somewhat with his suit. He looks quite intimidating, except we know he's a big softie, or at least extremely fond of cute things. There are stickers on his back, including one that resembles a Pokeball, though we think that's just a coincidence. More importantly, his briefcase is filled with plushies, including one of a star with a bow and a blobfish. Even beyond that, we can see a pin on his jacket showing a cute octopus with a bow, and his watch is pink and features another character with a bow. The guy really likes his bows. But as for his role, maybe it's possible to purchase these stickers, pins, and plushies as accessories of some kind. They might not have any effect on the gameplay, but they would make your character stand out. Otherwise though, we're not sure what his purpose could be, and that applies to the other characters in here as well. On the right side is a flashlight fish holding a flip phone, and we think this is a girl considering she's wearing a dress. Next to her is a character that remains obscured, but our best look makes us believe that it's a gulper eel. There was some suspicion that it may be a dolphin, but the fact that it only has one leg seems a bit odd and points more toward the eel. The gulper eel also better matches the deepwater sea life theme that's apparent from all of the new characters. But otherwise, the only outstanding feature of the eel is that it's holding a bag. The last character on the right side that we see towers over everyone else while wearing a varsity jacket. While we never see his face, we think it may be some kind of jellyfish. Yes, he's quite a bit taller than the jellyfish we see around Inkopolis, but deepwater jellyfish have been known to grow to enormous sizes. Intriguingly, not all characters down here seem as behind the times as the flashlight fish and its flip phone. We later see another angle of the large jellyfish where it's holding a modern phone. It looks like a standard version though, and not the squid-shaped one the Inklings use. How much of a class divide is there between the characters that hang out in Inkopolis and those we see on this subway? The left side of the train contains more characters, and the first is a ping-pong tree sponge that is apparently female due to her outfit, which we see in another scene. Next to her is what appears to be a lantern shark businessman, comfortably sitting with his bag at his feet. And just beyond him is a blobfish that seems to be listening to an old-school Walkman cassette player, at least based on the headphones he's wearing. And next to him is another passenger that seems to be based on sea grapes, with each grape actually being a head. All of them are strange designs, but really match the underground aesthetic of the scene. But like we said, we're not sure what any of them actually do in this campaign. Fortunately, we do have an idea what the last passenger, a sea cucumber in the middle of the floor, does. And his name is, Sea Cucumber. Oh boy, the puns are strong with this one. But he has the most scenes compared to the rest of the characters in this train car. During the sequence that reveals his name, it's because he welcomes Agent 8 to the 3 line. Now, we'll get into this map soon enough, but the line indicates he'll be teaching you more about the subway as you go along. We even see Mr. Cumber hanging out with Captain Cuttlefish and seemingly giving orders. It makes us wonder. The original Splatoon had a sunken scroll that showed a picture of the first Squidbeak Splatoon. Sea Cucumber is nowhere to be seen in it, but his familiarity with Cuttlefish might be because he was also a member. Maybe he was an even higher rank than Cuttlefish. Either way, we can also see that the train is moving during this scene, so perhaps that's when these special interactions take place that might flesh out the story. But there's even more to this subway than the new characters. At one point we see an old crank phone featured in the center of the car. However, we don't think it'll ever actually show up in that spot. Instead, it's something for Agent 8 to interact with once she gets off the train. The phone is in the center of the platform with doors on the opposite end. Presumably, we think players will receive some kind of instruction or goal from the phone before continuing on and taking on a level through the doors. And on a side note, while most of the background detail for the subway features graffiti, old posters, and signs of disuse, there is one ad in this sequence that features a different ping-pong tree sponge. It's not much, but it is confirmation that this is a whole other species now featured in the game. But this leads us into one of our bigger questions. How exactly are the levels structured in the Octo Expansion? We know from the direct that it connects to some kind of shady underground test facility, but looking at this clip, it doesn't seem to be part of any level. Instead, it's more like hero mode where each level had to be reached in order to actually challenge it. And this seems the most likely, as rather than discovering kettles to ink, Agent 8 might have to find some kind of platform. This is because in an earlier sequence, we see Agent 8 in the middle of one of the platforms as it rotates around her. Perhaps this is a kind of elevator that takes her to the various levels. We can also spot Sea Cucumber already waiting for her there while a ticket taker machine can be seen just behind him. We'll get into that soon enough, but we think this is the order of events to take on each of the 80 missions. There's a lot more to this, but before we actually explain how, we need to take a look at the subway map that appears during the trailer. There are 3 lines available: blue, yellow, and turquoise. Each one has a set of nodes that we believe represents the levels that need to be completed on that line. As you progress, more lines open up. The thing is, we don't really know where it starts. It would have to be the blue or yellow line as turquoise appears during this clip, but there are aspects of these two that raise questions. For one, why are none of the nodes on the blue line highlighted like the ones on yellow? Why are some highlighted in red? And finally, what is the significance of the giant blue node and the offshoot on the yellow node? Could the yellow line be the start that slowly opens up more as you complete levels on it? Maybe depending on which way you go, it unlocks different lines, leading to more player choice. Or maybe that offshoot is some kind of special area with a purpose we just don't know yet. It's really hard to say just based on this. Thankfully, there are some clues thanks to a screenshot released by Nintendo. This is a zoomed-in version of the map, and more progress has been made as we see a black line intersecting the turquoise line now. In addition, more of the nodes are lit up in white. So this very likely means that as you complete levels, they're marked on your map. We believe the screenshot also confirms where you'll start in the subway, as the offshoot from the yellow line is the one highlighted. This location is marked as A00 with text that reads, "Promised Land Here We Come, Deep Sea Central Station." It provides a clue to our goal, which seems to be simply escaping the subway system, and the start is the central station. It may even be underwater based on the name, Deep Sea Central Station. In fact, there's some evidence of both of these. In a sequence toward the end of the trailer, we see Agent 8 ascend an incline in the subway with some kind of glowing object at the top. We don't know the full context, but it feels like some kind of ultimate goal. In fact, we see Agent 8 outside of the subway, but not in Inkopolis itself. Instead, she's on the outskirts in the ocean with a hatch leading back down to the subway behind her. Maybe this is the ending where Agent 8 finally achieves freedom, where she can join the Inklings in Inkopolis Square. I mean, the tallest building in the skyline does resemble Deca Tower, despite the lack of the Great Zapfish. So that means it's either not the same building, or the Octo Expansion story takes place at the same time as the main campaign. We're not really sure, but it does seem that this is indeed a deep-sea central station, perhaps even further below Inkopolis than Octo Canyon, which may explain why the Octarians are a different color from the ones fought in Hero Mode, but we'll get to that soon enough. There's still more to see from the subway map in the meantime. In the trailer, there are 3 symbols at the top. The one on the left is the simplest to interpret, as it's for the map itself. The one in the middle shows an octopus with a thought bubble. Maybe this is some kind of new collectible in the stages? Or could it be where Agent 8 possibly upgrades her equipment? It could even be where different missions are listed. We can't really know for sure. The symbol on the right shows a gear, which is likely just the options menu where you can adjust the controls and settings. But the screenshot from Nintendo actually has a 4th symbol between the octopus and the gear, a text box. Maybe this is where missions are listed. But why wouldn't it be shown from the start? Maybe it can be a list of goals that can be achieved if you so choose, but we're really just guessing at this point. Looking at the map in general, we'd guess there would eventually be 8 total lines to go along with the Octo theming. There's something about this that strikes us as odd though. At the top right of the screen, we can see that there's a new kind of currency with a symbol next to it that resembles a chip card, which makes sense considering it all takes place in a subway. Agent 8 currently has 1,000 of these credits. But how did she get them in the first place? Are they an award for completing missions, or is this where the other passengers come in? Maybe completing tasks will net you these credits as payment. Either way, there has to be some consistent method of earning them, as Agent 8 has to spend 100 credits in order to even access the next level. Upon payment, she's granted 3 lives and is immediately launched to the first checkpoint. But you still need these credits to access the level. Does that mean a game over would cost another 100 credits to try again? Or are you guaranteed to start from the first checkpoint even if you run out of lives? And just how often are the credits earned? Well, we actually got the answer to this thanks to a recent update from the official Japanese Twitter account for Splatoon. We're shown an image of the game over screen that reveals that 3 more lives for a level does cost 100 credits. We still don't know where the credits come from, but players can choose to use Pearl and Marina to automatically skip the level and continue on. This potentially allows players the ability to unlock Octolings in multiplayer as soon as possible. But returning to this gateway, we can actually see the level beyond in this scene. The trees on the other side of the gate are the same ones featured in the clip with the Octoling using the inkjet to give chase to Agent 8. Likewise, when seen from another angle, subway signs can be spotted toward the back. But this setting also confirms that the design of the levels are similar to the ones in Octo Canyon. In this case, a giant kite with streamers can be seen in the background. That's kind of weird in and of itself, but the fact that Agent 8 is being attacked by the inkjet Octoling as soon as she steps into the level, plus the fact that this entire area is boxed in, makes us think that this entire level will be a chase sequence where players have to avoid the inkjet's shots. That would be different from the main campaign all on its own, but there's a strange moment where a tree somehow sprouts up from an inkjet shot. It may seem like the inkjet is creating the tree, and that's technically true, but we can actually see a dark spot on the ground where the tree sprouts up. So there are specific points that, when inked, will create more obstacles for the player. The next scene shows a fight against Octostamps where the background is more of an underwater aesthetic that features seaweed and not much else. This could be a mini-boss against the slightly larger Octostamp, but we don't think so. Not in the traditional sense at least. And that's because it's the arena itself that caught our attention. It's comprised entirely of squares that light up once they're filled in with a single ink color. The goal, rather than defeat this large Octostamp, seems to be to fill in all the squares with your color. And the Octostamp even facilitates this thanks to the ink balloons on its sides. Players would just have to dodge its attack and then fill up the balloons to ink a large area around them. And between the previous stage and this one, we think this is the main gimmick of the Octo Expansion. Rather than complete traditional levels like the main campaign, each test facility is just that, a test facility, focusing on specific challenges. Escape the inkjet Octoling, fill in the squares, and many more, as we'll see with each new level. It helps the expansion stands out even more from the standard hero mode. Returning to this challenge, there's still more that we want to point out. For one, Agent 8 is using a roller instead of the splatter shot, so specific weapons will be required depending on the mission. It honestly makes sense if each level is indeed a kind of test, and as the camera rotates, a dash track can be spotted on a platform above, likely indicating where you first came into this arena. Finally, the Octarians have the same blue-green coloration of the Octolings. We still don't know why beyond the deep sea vibe of the expansion, but otherwise they act the same. Speaking of the deep sea, that's exactly what the next stage looks like as well, with darkened reefs dotting the background while strange lights stream around in cube patterns. Could the mission involve inking these lights and progressing forward, or is it about using the Splatling gun to mow down the dozens of Octarians that appear? There could be multiple instances of this, teaching players some methods and techniques for each of the weapons. After all, at the top right of the screen, we can see some kind of cork or bucket on a string. It doesn't seem to match the look of the background, so maybe it's connected to moving forward? The next gameplay sequence shows Agent 8 using the Inkjet Special. At first glance, it seems like the normal campaign where players had access to certain specials. But if we go by our mission theory, Agent 8 may always be using the inkjet for this particular challenge. And it would make sense too, as the player would have to dodge the incoming octoblimps while shooting the rotating drums to keep the platform active so you can continue forward. Managing all these elements at the same time would provide plenty of practice for the inkjet. But there's more to gather from this scene as well. Defeating Octarians provides power eggs that are likely used to upgrade your Octoling, although maybe they can be exchanged for the credits we used in the subway. Either way, the background shows the goal for each level, and it appears to be some kind of gate. We're no longer rescuing Zapfish, so there had to be a new objective. Unfortunately, we can't quite make out what it is. There's a glowing item beneath the arch along with some kind of suit on a platform. And strangely, there's a hook to latch onto and launch yourself up. But it seems to be on the opposite side. Could this merely be a checkpoint, or are some of the missions placed one after the other? Continuing on, the next stage also focuses on a special, the Baller. In this challenge, the Octoling has to navigate tilted platforms while dodging Octoblimps and Octo-Snipers. Again, these challenges seem to be teaching control in the full use of the specials. It's a clever way to utilize single-player content, but so far each of these stages have seemed pretty simple, at least on a surface level. That's not the case with the mission that takes place in a cityscape with skyscrapers and bent metal all around. Instead, it seems to be a relatively large level that focuses on a giant ball. This ball actually travels through the returning squid rings to grant Agent 8 power eggs, which makes us think that it's the core of this challenge. We see it flying from neon launcher to neon launcher, but we don't think it does this automatically. Instead, it's possible that the Octoling needs to escort the ball and ink the launcher with the Clash Blaster in order to send it to the one next in line until it finally reaches the goal. If it requires a lot of backtracking, it would also explain why some parts of the level have already been inked. We should also note that the launchers resemble octopus tentacles, which is a nice touch. The ride rails are back in the next mission, where Agent 8 grinds on them while lasers shoot out from the central platform that's constantly rotating. Wooden platforms make up most of the outskirts of the level, while more seaweed can be spotted in the background. Agent 8 is equipped with a slosher, but we're not sure how that specific weapon will be utilized. It seems to be more of a platforming challenge with the rotating center. We've seen elements like this before, but this is certainly the largest. The next mission shown features Agent 8 using an Octobrush to destroy a set of boxes while avoiding a new obstacle that looks like an ink blender. It certainly looks like a fast way to become takoyaki, but the objective of this map seems to be simply destroying a set of boxes, although it may be more complicated than it first appears. It could be a time-based objective to give it a bit more challenge, as there's a new glowing item ahead. We think it could be used to automatically refill your ink reserves, preventing the need to dive into the ink and refill it that way. This would also save time and allow players to complete the supposed time limit. Again, it's mainly conjecture based on what we see in the level, but we think we're pretty close in our theory. There is another option where there is no time limit, and instead the player can't become an octopus to refill their ink. The challenge then becomes properly managing your reserves and finding the optimal route while destroying boxes. And if it seems odd that the game would limit your abilities, well, we see that in action in the following mission. In it, Agent 8 isn't carrying any weapons at all while she grinds the rail. Octo blimps are flying around it while a smaller one is coming straight for her. It's quite obvious that the player will have to navigate this mission with no way to defend themselves other than avoiding enemies. And in the background, the platforms are covered in enemy ink, making it all the trickier. But she's almost at the end as the arch is in sight. Unfortunately, we still couldn't make out what the goal of the arch actually is. Maybe it's just a gate back to the subway. Another mission is structured quite differently as well. The end goal is in the center, but there's nothing to obtain in it. There is a glowing white circle just below, which could be a portal back to the subway. And the windows above even show what looks to be the station, confirming that these are enclosed facilities. We think the challenge is to use the charger to move the platform forward using the rotating drums while picking off the Octarians in the distance. Maybe as each one is defeated, the end goal begins to construct itself. With the limited room on your platform and the sheer number of enemies, we could see it being a little tricky. The final mission that was revealed features the huge kite that we saw in the background of the inkjet Octoling. It actually resembles a squid with crazy eyes, and there's more than one as the camera rotates. The level itself features a twisting complex of ride rails while bounce pads line the bottom. Meanwhile, there are boxes to destroy while ink discs travel along the rails. The weapon of choice this time around is the Jet Squelcher, but we're not sure why one of the boxes is larger and orange compared to the others. Still, the levels we've seen so far really give us a sneak peek of the 80 that will be available in the full expansion. Okay, we're almost done here, but there's a few more details that we wanted to point out. For one, Nintendo released more screenshots of the expansion with levels that don't give many details as far as gameplay, but the background elements are certainly fun. One has a sky lined with GameCubes, another features old PCs while containers line the actual platform, a third is filled with Game Boy Colors while Agent 8 uses the inkjet, and the final screen has a ton of CDs surrounding Agent 8 as she grinds with the dually squelchers. There's even rotating drums in the background, possibly indicating that they need to be shot in order to continue along the correct path. And speaking of other weapons, another screenshot features the sloshing machine while Agent 8 is surrounded by Octarians. Maybe this mission is a rush of enemies since the sloshing machine is more of an offensive weapon? Beyond the screenshots, we also see the Octolings in Inkopolis once the expansion is completed. There's not too much to say about them, except that we now see that Octoling fangs are arranged differently compared to the Inklings. It also seems that the Octoling boy and girl are capable of wearing anything, although they might be limited to a single kind of hairstyle. That could change as we get more information, but that looks to be the case so far. And that's everything we could find in the reveal trailer for Splatoon 2's Octo Expansion. It already looked quite different from the game's main campaign, but even the structure of the levels themselves and the player's goals seem to change from stage to stage. Although they might not be as long as the hero mode stages, the 80 new missions look to have a lot more variety. We can't wait to try it for ourselves to see what this new story may be, who these crazy new characters are, and simply getting the chance to play as Octolings. Of course, if we missed anything, let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for future Splatoon coverage and even more from GameXplain.